over again. Please forgive me. So again, we're now starting part 5 of this talk in Chavches Sivan. This is a phenomenal talk the Rebbe gave, and I think over here he summarizes his work of 40 years in his leadership and what has progressed, what has happened. We all know that when the Rebbe became Rebbe and became by saying the Maimer Basi Lagani, he then laid out the idea that his mission is much more than just being a Chabad Rebbe that teaches Chabad Torah to the world. The Rebbe said that his mission over there is to complete the purpose for why the world was created, to bring heaven down to earth, to purify the earth, make God a home in this world. That's the purpose. He said, our 7 tzaddikim, we need to do that. The Chiddush in this Chavches Sivan Sicha, 40 years later, is the Rebbe basically is turning around and says, we did it. We did it. It was done. And he very methodically develops the idea that, and it is connected to the day that he came to America, and we saw Bashgacha Pratis was 2 times the Rebbe came to America on the same day, which discussed in the earlier classes. And the theme is that on the 28th of Sivan represents Koach. Koach means the power. The power of Sivan is the power of the Torah. And the power of the Torah is the power to be able to, the Torah is the power to, what is the Torah meant to be? It's meant to communicate the divine to everywhere and to everything. And the ultimate conquest, the ultimate power of the Torah is when it can actually reach everywhere and everything mamish, literally. And everywhere, everything mamish means even those things that are the most ungodly and most non-receptive. And in the world, it means the lower part of the hemisphere, which is the United States of America, which, as we see and earlier, we spoke in the earlier classes, was a place that was pretty resistant to spirituality, holiness, and fear of God. And the idea that America too can become a place where Yiddishkeit thrives, where God is taken seriously, is unbelievable. But the Rebbe explains that even more than that, then once you hit rock bottom and you hit the lowest point, then in an unbelievable metamorphosis and transformation, not only is the lowest point the final place where holiness reaches and arrives, but that the lowest point then becomes the point of life and influence and information and divine and godly enlightenment to all the realms above it. That from the lowest point, everything is elevated. And the Rebbe says that from the lowest generation, the last generation, all the generations before benefit and they receive. We are mashpia, we influence all the earlier generations, all the way up to the highest generation that received the Torah. So it's an amazing idea. We're the last generation, which means everything is flowing from up down to us. All the mitzvahs our parents are doing, all the merits, they're all channeled down to us, helping us, assisting us, guiding us. We're building on them. But once we complete the job, we turn around and we become the source of power, influence, and holiness and connection to Hashem in the deepest way from the lowest point. And the Rebbe said that has been accomplished on Chav Chasiva when the Rebbe came to America and when he established 770. Not only do we find that in 770 was more revelation of Torah, more revelation of Chassidus, more revelation of Pnimius Torah, the esoteric part of the Torah, and its farthest reaches, that there isn't a place in the world where it doesn't reach. That's the point of 770. The Rebbe says, Gematria Ufaratzta. Faratzta means infinite, without barriers. But even more that, how did it do it? By reaching every point of time and space. Then the Rebbe continued, as we spoke last week, since this is the culmination and the final piece that needed, the final thing that needed to be done in order to complete the purpose of creation. This is the last and final point that needed to be conquered, elevated, transformed, and it's because of this that this becomes also the place where Mashiach, the Rebbe doesn't say Mashiach reveals himself, but the Rebbe says with the third temple, the Beis HaMikdash, which is a consequence of all of our work, reveals itself not in Eretz Yisrael, but in the place in Golus, in the lowest of places, in Brooklyn, New York, where from there we receive the third Beis HaMikdash, and then after it's received in that place, will it move over together with the structure of the Rebbe Shul of 770, and together with that, as we learned in another place, all the other shuls from the entire world and connect to the third Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi in the future. That's the idea. So now, I would like to do the last piece of this talk. Now, what happened was on that talk that the Rebbe spoke, Chav Sivan, the Rebbe gave a sikha about the significance, and which we had basically discussed already. And then in the end, they davened Ma'ariv. And after they davened Ma'ariv, they were waiting. The Rebbe was going to give out a special kuntris that they were going to give out for the honor of the day. It's called kuntris Chav Sivan, special kuntris. And the Rebbe himself stood and gave them out to the hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people who walked by and received the kuntris, received this booklet of Chassidus and the like. And meanwhile, the problem was that those booklets were still being brought over from the printer, and they weren't ready to there yet. I guess it was a last minute kind of a thing. It was a rush job. So they were waiting. So the Gabbai announced, this is very important, the Gabbai in the shul in 7-7, they announced that now there's going to be a break, and afterwards, after the break, the Rebbe is going to give out the kuntris. Now, as I can imagine, I think the Rebbe went to the oil that day, and the Rebbe fasted, and this was late at night, and I guess they wanted also that the Rebbe, before the Rebbe stands, take a break, then the Rebbe can go in and break his fast and come back down. I mean, I'm not sure about that, but I think that was kind of part of the kavanah, the intention. Or I don't know if that was the intention of the delay. I don't think anybody delayed it intentionally, but the fact that it turned out that they had to wait anyway, so they would use it like the Rebbe would have a chance to get some rest after a fast. Talking about, it was an elderly man of 90 years old. So the Rebbe, however, answered when the Gabbai made that announcement. The Rebbe said these words. Hear these words very carefully. The Rebbe says, "Anstot machen a hefsek, wenn wir jetzt machen a hemshech." Instead of making an interruption, we're going to make a continuation. Okay. Simply, it means let's continue. And the Rebbe got up and spoke another sikha. The second sikha that he spoke is much shorter. And you can read the story just in simple. Okay. Instead of making an interruption, we're going to make a continuation. That's what he did. And he spoke, and then the Sfarim came in, and then he gave him out. When we look a little deeper, and we'll see what he's talking about, what the Rebbe is talking about in this last piece of the Sikha, and the Rebbe makes notion in the content of the Sikha itself that there won't be a hefsek, there won't be an interruption. And when we examine this a little bit on the deeper scale, what is being said over here, we see something extremely frightening and something like crazy what is being said over here. And I think it adds tremendous understanding to this period that we're in right now, which we might say chas v'sholom is an interruption. And I think that Rebbe is alluding to the future of next phase of Lubavitch, because as I mentioned to you, in this Chav Sivan, the Rebbe is basically giving a conclusion of the work. He's signing the papers, job done. That's really what he did in this sikh. He says the job has been completed, finished. He's handing in the work, and now he's ready to get a new workload. There's going to be, the work is not over, but this work that's going to be now is of a complete different nature, and he's going to explain that in the content over here. The Rebbe is explaining it into the content of the day that was coming, the 29th of Sivan, which follows the 28th of Sivan. So he's going to explain what's the 29th of Sivan, Erev Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. But being that it's the month of Tammuz, and a few years later, we know what happened in the month of Tammuz, Gimel Tammuz, and the content of what the Rebbe is talking about over here is related to the idea of what was going to happen in Tammuz. And let's see. Let me tell you what is happening. So the Rebbe says like this. Again, what I'm saying now is Adaita de Nafshi, and I know other people have also obviously picked up on this. To me, it's very clear that it's quite obvious. But again, I'm not talking about something that says explicit, but something that is derived. That the Rebbe is that it seems to me that he's hinting to. Let's read, however, what he does say. And let me first read what he does say, and let's analyze the undercurrent of what is being said. The Rebbe says that in addition to Chav Sivan being the koach, the power of the month of Sivan, and like we spoke earlier, relating to the month of Sivan, it's also somehow connected to the following month. Why? Because it's a koach, it's a day that not only reveals and actualizes all the potential that is in the month of Sivan, which is to connect the world with Hashem. That's Sivan. Sivan is all about connecting through the Torah, the world, to God. The Rebbe says there's another inyan. There is Rosh Chodesh. After Chav Chasivan comes Chav Tes Sivan, which is Erev Rosh Chodesh. Erev Rosh Chodesh means the day before the Rosh Chodesh is a day. What happens on Erev Rosh Chodesh? On the day before Rosh Chodesh is the final stage in which we prepare ourselves to experience on Rosh Chodesh the ultimate union and connection with God. As we know, the Jewish people are compared to the moon. And the moon, every Erev Rosh Chodesh disappears from the sky. And then it is reborn again on Rosh Chodesh. That's what Rosh Chodesh is, the rebirth of the moon. Now, that process of the moon disappearing and rebirthing is related to the fact that the moon somehow is being blocked in its positioning from reflecting the light of the sun on Erev Rosh Chodesh. And then when you start seeing the moonlight again, it means that the moon is again reflecting to earth the light of the sun. So in Kabbalah and in Chassidus it says that that's the idea of the yichud, of the union of the sun and moon. Sun and moon is like a husband and a wife. So just like there's a period of separation between a husband and a wife every month, and then they come together again, the same is also there's a period of separation between Knesset Yisroel, between the Jewish people and Hashem, which is represented during the time of exile. And then there's the reunification, which is the Geula. So the Geula is very deeply connected to Rosh Chodesh, the birth of the new moon. It means that Knesset Yisroel, the Jewish people, have achieved perfect harmony and unity with God. And not only that they can shine that new light that they have now achieved and their oneness with Hashem onto the world. It's visible to the world how Yidden have become unified with Hashem. That's the idea of the Geula. What happens Erev Rosh Chodesh? Erev Rosh Chodesh, in preparation for that, in order for the moon, in order for the moon, which represents the Jewish people, to achieve union with God, we need to first have complete, now we have to understand something. We need to have complete bittul. Bittul means we have to completely dissolve from our previous state of mind, experience, and being. We have to dissolve into a state of nothingness, and from that nothingness we can connect. And the reason for that is because a new connection to God doesn't mean the same old, what was yesterday, we're going to continue. New connection to Hashem means a total new reality, a whole new power, something that's going to take us to a place that is unimaginably before. So it's not a progressive growth; it's a quantum leap. And in order to achieve a quantum leap, in simple words, we're talking about a finite being connecting to an infinite being. So the finitude of the finite being, the structure, the psychological structure, which set up the parameters, the definition that defines your worldview, what you think, what you know, what you feel, who you are, is a limitation and a block from one's unification, which is infinite and beyond all description and beyond all specific. So we have to undo whatever we have in order to be able to reconnect and then shine a whole new light and a whole new infinite possibility to the world. And that's the process of Erev Rosh Chodesh and Rosh Chodesh. Erev Rosh Chodesh is the complete dissolvement of what we've done before. And it's an amazing thing because it comes after the previous month. Every month means we've absorbed God's light and we built for 15 days in the month, we build up an entire structure. What does that mean? And it means in our relationship with Hashem, Hashem gave us, let's say for instance, that we spoke earlier, we've given a task to make the world holy. It's a project. And we've increased that, we've built on that, generation after generation after generation after generation, until we come to the Rebbe's generation, the last and final generation, our generation. And it's meant to put the final touches. We completed all the work that the Jewish people needed to do throughout all of history, the purpose of creation, Gewalt, unbelievable accomplishment. Now we can turn around to God and say, hey, we're ready, we've done our job. Now, can you please come move into your home? And how does Hashem move into his home? By first joining and unifying with us. And through us, he unifies with the world. But what do we have to do? Notwithstanding all that development, we have to now come to a point when we surrender and become nullified and kind of, I don't want to say drop the achievements. We have it all with us. We're not going to lose it, but become so self-effaced by the overwhelming reality of the Eibishter himself that we lose our existence completely, as if we don't exist. And as we're turning back to the King, as we are working with the world, influencing the world, we have a certain persona, we have a certain power, we have a certain self, we project ourselves, we project our holy ideology, we have a certain strength of being. But when you're turning back to God, you become non-being again. That's the process of Erev Rosh Chodesh, that nothingness. All we have is a deep yearning for Him and for the infinite new potential that will come. Then in that nothingness, we become a keli for Him. So the Rebbe says that happens on Chav Tes, that nothingness. And Chav Ches, the Rebbe says, the koyach Sivan is the koyach, the power to do the next phase, which is that nullification to our source. Okay? That's the and the Rebbe says in the concept of Chassidus, it's called the idea about David HaMelech. David HaMelech is compared to the moon. This is all plays itself out when David HaMelech is invited to Shaul HaMelech's Rosh Chodesh party, to King Saul's Rosh Chodesh party, and Yonasan says to him, tomorrow my father will inquire about you because you will be absent. So the absence is the idea of Erev Rosh Chodesh. David HaMelech is Malchus. David HaMelech is the Shekhinah. David HaMelech encapsulates all the neshamas of the Jewish people. He is the general soul of Israel. Shaul HaMelech in this case is representing God. And what he's saying is that you're invited to the Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh is, there has to be a joining, a union between Saul and David. Spiritually, that means the relationship between Shaul and David means the relationship of the sun and the moon, between Hashem and the Jewish people. It really means messianic light, the joining of Hashem and the world. But in order for that to happen, there has to be first an absence. Notwithstanding that you are the most acclaimed person, you're David HaMelech, you have everything, you're not there. Your place is vacant. It's that bittul, it's that nothingness. Without that nothingness, we can't achieve the ultimate. This is after everything that has been accomplished. That's what's so crazy. After you come to 28th day of Sivan Koyach, you've realized the full potential of everything. Now you dissolve. But what does that lead to? The Rebbe says that leads to the joining of the Jewish people becoming one with Hashem. And he says in Avodas Hashem, it means, since Yidden are compared to the moon, that an Erev Rosh Chodesh is the shleimus of the avodah. That means, what's the shleimus of the avodah? The shleimus of avodah is not only perfecting the world. The real perfection of the avodah is after we perfect the world, we join ourselves together with the world that we've elevated with Hashem. When a state, as the Rebbe says, when he's standing in a state of tachlis habitul, it's like the moon that is behelim. Is the reason we don't see the moon is because she has no presence she's lost kind of in the shadow of the sun. And what happens, and that brings, what does that do? That brings, there's a moment kind of concealment and darkness, but that moment of darkness leads to the next stage of you will be remembered because your seat is vacant. Remembering is the connection, the point of contact, where the Yid and the Eibishter actually become one. Erev Rosh Chodesh is a self-effacement, a preparation to the oneness, and now the finite and the infinite merge. The Yid's neshama and the Eibishter merge. The yichud v'zivuk, the unity between Knesset Yisroel, Malchus, which is the Sun, and the Eibishter Zah Shemesh, Zeir Ampe Shemesh. And the Rebbe says it's not just collectively. It's every individual Jew, as an individual, becomes one with God. And you become so much with God that God is your husband and you're his wife, to the point that we become, like it says by husband and wife, they become one flesh. They become one entity. They're inseparable. You don't know where one begins and the other starts. We become completely an entity of perfect oneness. And that's what happens with the Yid and the Eibishter as they become, as a result of the Erev Rosh Chodesh disappearance. And here this paragraph, I'm going to read it in Yiddish. Was demolts is doch sicher, nicht shayach kan inyan von hefsek chas v'shalom. So this, if this is the case, if a Jew becomes joined with God, it's not possible that there should be a hefsek. There should be an interruption. Because there's no, interruption means a disconnect. There's no disconnect. Vodem adarabe, but rather in the contrary, says do dafke nor an inyan von es achtos. All there is a joining. An es achtos betachlos hashlemus. A joining of perfect unity. So here you see the Rebbe is like kind of referring to what he said earlier, what the Gabbai announced, now there will be a hefsek. And the Rebbe said, no, not a hefsek, there's going to be a continuation. So he's talking over here that when the moon disappears, don't read it as a hefsek. It's not an interruption, it's just a continuation. It's just a unity, it's all a unification. Now the Rebbe says, what happens when a man and a woman become joined together as one? Hopefully, when a couple get married and they complete their two halves of two souls and two halves of one being, and now they come together, that brings about the infinite potential of childbirth. New children, there's Toldos, right? So now there's children. The Rebbe says, when Jews will achieve ultimate union with God, a unity with Hashem, there will be children. What is the children? The children is the ultimate good deed that needs to be accomplished. Because Chazal say that Toldosayim, that Toldos means children. Toldos, and Chazal say also in Parshas Noach that Toldosayim shel tzadikim, the offspring of tzadikim, are their good actions. So now we're talking about a whole new set of actions, good deeds that are going to come from a Jew joined completely with Hashem. So what are these new good deeds? It can't be regular mitzvahs, because mitzvahs we've been doing as part of our work of fixing the world. That's been done the 28 days until Chav Sivan. And when I say Chav Sivan, I mean the 3,500 years of Torah and mitzvahs. Those are the 28 days of building Sivan, building Torah. So we were now constructed, built and built and built and built, and reached the complete state of building, 28th of Sivan, reaching its zenith of that building. We've done a mitzvah. Those are the actions we've done in the world. As a good wife, before she has intimacy with her husband, she built up the whole house. She made him comfortable. Then she goes to her husband, and now she's being close to him, and they're unified. And now they're having children. So the children that they're having is a whole different type of ma'asim tovim. It's not just good deeds of another mitzvah. Mitzvah is awesome, but this is even deeper. This is an action in which we and God, what's the point of a child? A child is you and your spouse are completely, totally joined together and represented in this individual that's being born. They are the both of you merged together in your children. In our case with the Eibishter, it's an action in which never becomes separated from Hashem, because we, Hashem, are completely one in this action. And the Rebbe says, what's that action? That we and the Eibishter are completely one, that we need to do now together. Hear this? That we need to do now together after we go into the next stage, after we finish all the work, and we experience that self-effacement, which brings us into a state of perfect oneness with the Eibishter. Comes the stage number 3, or I should say stage number 4. Let's go through the 4 stages. Stage number 1 is the work we do prior to this union. That's the work of fixing the world. The fact that the woman should find favor in her husband's eyes. That's number 1. Then they're preparing for the actual wedding night. And what's that? That's the self-effacement. That's like a kala covering her face before she's meeting the chassid. It's that disappearance. She gets lost in his light. That's the Erev Rosh Chodesh. Then comes Rosh Chodesh, which is the joining of the two together as they become the actual intimacy, they become one. And then comes 9 months later, and there's a birth of the baby, which is born from this unity. And that's the next thing. Now, what is that? That's the final action of revealing Mashiach in the world. Because the Rebbe says, for Mashiach to be revealed in the world, we and the Eibishter need to be partners. In the Rebbe says, in the Eibishter's business, what's the Eibishter's business? His home in this world, that he should be fully manifest and revealed with Tchias HaMeisim, with everything that's going to happen in Mashiach. That's that baby that was produced from the two of us together. And the Rebbe says it's going to come in a manner where the Eibishter, just like a father can't produce a child without a woman, he needs the woman. The woman can't have the child, she can't mother a child without the father. Both of them needed to do it jointly. The Rebbe says the final revelation of Mashiach needs to be done between us and the Eibishter together. We're partners in the Eibishter's business of bringing Mashiach. How do we do that? What is it that we do to actualize Mashiach in the world? The Rebbe says these words, as was der Eibishter soll das durchführen beschleimes, when the Eibishter, in order for Hashem, should be able to actualize this literally, darf der Eibishter kiviyachol haben die Estatfus von jeder Yid. The Eibishter needs our partnership. Hashem needs our participation. And how do we participate with the Eibishter? Not our souls, but als neshama beguf, a neshama with a body will participate with the Eibishter. That what? that through our maseinu, v'avadisenu, through our actions, kum di giyula. But this is not just regular maseinu v'avadisenu pertaining to the giyula. What's the Rebbe talking about? He adds these words. I think this is very stunning words here. Bedarf kiviyachol onkum, and as the yid zol maskim zayin. We need to come to a place where the Jew should be maskim. Maskim means the Jew should, hold on one second, this thing is ringing. We need as a yid zol maskim zayin. That means that the yid should consent in nochmer, that he should not only consent and agree, he should agree to, but he should want and he should announce that not only the time of redemption has arrived, but that the Geula is here already, bepashtas. Interesting lashon. In other words, for Mashiach to happen, it can't be a stunning revelation of God, because the Eibishter requires us to do it together with him. As he's doing it, we are validating that this is what's happening. It's a strange thing. What is the Rebbe saying? But I weiß nicht exactly. I don't know exactly. But it seems like it's a process that requires, like the Rebbe told us, open your eyes, learn about it, open your eyes, see me. I'm doing it all, but I'm doing it within the world, as part of the world. The world is becoming my world. It's becoming exactly the way I want it, but you need to acknowledge that it's happening. And only when you acknowledge that it's happening, then it can happen. So the Yid shouldn't only say the time of redemption. The Eibishter needs that we should say that it happened already, that the Geula is here already. Because what's Geula? Geula is to do with Gilui. Revelation, the revelation requires us because we need to see it. That's what Geula is. It's revealing something. So we need to see it. The Gilui fenalifa shalaylam, which is the last and final thing, that's the children and the product of this unity. And the koyach, the Rebbe goes on to say, to do this is from koyach Sivan, in Perik Yud Gimel. And he goes on to explain why koyach Sivan gives us the koyach for the ultimate, not only the koyach to fix the world, but the ultimate fusion that we have with the Eibishter, so that we can do the last avodah. I want to stop for a moment. So here stands the Lubavitcher Rebbe, after 40 years, on the day that he comes to America's soil. And he's giving a progress report. And he announces everything is done. Then he says, but there is now that we're finished, is going to come the next stage. There's going to be the stage when the moon is going to disappear. Which means, we know, we the Jewish people are the moon, but amongst the Jewish people, the leader is the moon, like Yeshua was compared to the moon, and amongst the Jewish people, the ultimate moon is Malchus Beis David, Mashiach Tzidkein. So the Rebbe is basically saying we're coming to the next stage of unity with God, which involves a certain self-effacement. It seems like the Rebbe knew that something's going to happen. The Rebbe wanted to avoid even the possibility that it should be chas v'shalom in a manner of a hefsek, which means that it should be in a way that there should be what seems to be interruption in the work of the Rebbe's work in this world, the final work of revealing the Geula. We're moving to a stage where we have to go to a higher state of bittul and nullification, and the Rebbe is saying that it should be in an oifen of neshama beguf. It should be this achdus should happen as our souls are together with our bodies, not in a way chas v'shalom where it's going to be in a way that there's some kind of a concealment. But the Rebbe is emphasizing there's no hefsek. There shouldn't. And it seems like even if chas v'shalom, in a sense, we might end up in a situation like we have in the last 25 years of darkness. But we should know that it's not a hefsek chas v'shalom. It's a intermittent state to bring about the final revelation. And as it relates to us, Chassidim, we're also part of that process. And what happens over here is, as the Rebbe, if I can say my own little thought, is as the Rebbe gave us, when the Rebbe gave us the Maimer Ata Tetzaveh, the Rebbe explains that when we are going to live in a time when it's comfortable, when we basically have, certain comfort in our life, begashmias, the material physical world is not like, Jews are not being oppressed. We're living in a world where, physically and even spiritually things are kind of well and good. But yet we cannot make peace with the fact that Mashiach isn't here. And it drives us crazy. And we relentlessly don't give up, banging and banging and banging and banging and non-tolerating the Golas and demanding the Geula. The Rebbe says that that can only come from uncovering the part of the Neshama which you and the Eibishter are completely one. And therefore the Eibishter's project is your project. So that's reflected in the Sikha over here. That the last and final revelation of the Geula comes when we and the Eibishter are one. And that revelation of the Eibishter of one comes in the midst of this darkness when the moon disappears. And it reaches that state of unity. And in that state of unity with the sun is where we reveal this revelation. In other words, it's very easy now at this time to say, oh, interrupted, it didn't work out, things didn't work out, chas v'shalom. The Rebbe says, no chas v'shalom, there's no hefsek. Now is the main work. And what's the work now? In order for you to care, for you to really be into it, for you to do your job that needs to be done right now, you can only reveal that if you and God are totally one. Because only in that state will you have that strength and that durability. Not only that, you have the koyach to do this. To uncover the ultimate revelation of Eibishter in the world. And Moshiach Tzidkenu. And the Rebbe says again, Anstatt machen a hefsek, we're going to make a hemshech. These two phases in the Nesius of the Rebbe, pre-Gimel Tammuz and post-Gimel Tammuz, until the actual final redemption, are not two disconnected stages. It's a hemshech. Maybe there was a tefillah that it shouldn't even be the way it was. Probably. But I want to say is that even the way it turned out to be, the way it is, which doesn't make any sense, but in a weird way makes sense based on what we're learning over here, but yet doesn't make any sense. But the Rebbe wants us to realize that even within this setting, it's not chas v'shalom a hefsek. It's a hemshech. We're dealing with a state when Malchus disappears because he's going up. In other words, Mashiach Tzidkenu becomes, like the Medrash says, nichse, becomes hidden, because he's going, his neshama and his body, whatever, is going up to reach the deepest oneness with Hashem, so that afterwards can be chazer v'nigla, can reveal himself. But that process of revelation requires our participation, that we should announce that it is. We shouldn't be nispol by the concealment. We should announce that he's already revealed in the world. And that's our avodah today. And he definitely is already revealed in the world. It's incumbent upon us to look around the world and see the incredible things that have been happening the last few years and see Ot Melech HaMoshiach. This is Moshiach. This is Moshiach's work. This is all coming from who? From the Rebbe. The Rebbe said clearly, whatever is happening in the world today, the whole upheaval in the United States politics, the whole Donald Trump story, the whole transformation in the United States, the world is becoming more consistent in regarding Eretz Yisroel and so on and so forth. We're seeing the ultimate fight play out in front of our eyes this week between anti-Semites and a friend of the Jewish people, and that he's defending and so ferociously Eretz Yisroel, the Yidden, and so on and so forth. The whole thing doesn't make any sense from head to toe. Whole story of Yisroel Goldstein, everything doesn't make any sense. The vice president should go visit a Chabad house and tell the Chabad rabbi, you are the inspiration for America. I mean, take a look what's happening. This is like crazy, crazy stuff. And this is all Gilui of Melech HaMashiach, but we need to not be afraid to say it. Say it and declare it openly and be Megala it, because it's here. It needs to be Nizgala. And we need to be Megala it. May we help the Eibush to help it. We should have, as the Rebbe says in this Sikha, the Koyach, which comes from Koyach Sivan, to be able to be Megala. And that too we get the Koyach from the Rebbe coming to America and infusing in each and all of us, in each and every one of us, that Koyach to withstand the last and final squeeze that we're going through right now. And we should have the courage, the guts, and the understanding that yes, Hinei Zeh Melech HaMoshiach Ba. The Rebbe kehrt the ganze Welt. The Rebbe is turning over the entire world. And of course, those will have tainus of me. The Eibishter is turning over the world. That's the point what we're learning over here. Moshiach becomes totally joined and unified with the Eibishter to bring about the revelation, the final, his galos of God in this world, through Moshiach Tzidkenu. May we merit to see it now, 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 and now.
They just officially canceled the flight this second. So unless I somehow miraculously get on another LAX flight that was delayed, I doubt it, you'll not be in there on time in the morning. I'm sorry. If anything changes, I'll keep you posted.